Hello, this is Dr. Melita Tate at Grassroots Healthcare. We're coming to you live this week from our clinic. For those of you joining us on the internet, if you'll go below, you can click in and be able to give us some comments or questions that may come up this week. That may have come up this week, and we're doing what I call my birthday show, but it's really the beginning of the year show. We're very excited about starting a new year, getting our health on track, and our wellness. It's more about having healthy bodies instead of bikini bodies. So that's what we're working towards this week, although both would be nice, I will admit. All right, so Grassroots Healthcare, we're a non-insurance clinic. We don't accept insurance, although you can file your own insurance if you come here for your lab work or your office visit. We take patients of all sizes, from pediatrics up to adults. Our focus is on natural health and wellness, but we also prescribe medications when people are sick enough to need them, and then try to come underneath and support you and wean you off of all the medications that we can so that you'll be healthy and medication free. And that's Grassroots Healthcare. We're located at 91st and Sheridan, 6530 East 91st Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have friends from far and wide. Many of our patients are moving off different directions and finding alternative health and wellness clinics in other places, and they stay in touch with us. And so we have some people joining us from as far away as Arizona, and then most of our listeners and watchers, viewers, I suppose you'd say, are here, located right here in the heart of the Bible Belt, Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's very good to have you. I'm very excited to have you on my show today. And today it's just me. We don't have any guests. We wanted to kind of go over some of the things that we've talked about before, go back and catch up with some of the products and different ideas that we've discussed in the last wellness shows. And so that's what we're going to do today. Many of you are trying to make a fresh start. Me too. I'm 42 today. Well, 42 on Sunday, my birthday is. And so we called this my birthday show because it got people excited about it, and we got to put a big cake on there. And we're going to talk a lot today about some of the foods that we're eating and our nutritional component, along with going back over some of the other things we've talked about in the previous weeks. So excited to have you with us. Thank you for joining us today. Now, I'm going to feel a little nostalgic probably because this is my birthday and because of what time of the year it is. The weather's cold, or at least it has been cold this past week, bitter cold for about a week here in Tulsa. So things have been very quiet. We've had a little bit of struggle with the flu and some other illnesses, but people have just been really chilled to the bone and not really wanting to talk much. Things change here in northern Oklahoma when people get cold. People start to get a little more clipped in their speech. It's almost like it's too much of an effort, or maybe they're afraid their teeth will chatter. I don't know why, but things start to change a little bit around here when we have too much cold for too long, or if we go without sunlight for long enough. Sometimes people get a little moody and cranky. So if you're noticing that with your spouse at home, get them out in the sun. We're going to have some warm weather coming up. My local weather service, Mikey, keeps me posted on whether or not we're having flurries or how the weather's going to be, and she's assured me that it's going to be in the 60s up until, is it Tuesday, Mikey? Yeah, she's giving me the nod. Yes, she says it's going to be up into the 60s until about Tuesday or so, and beyond that, who knows, folks? It's northern Oklahoma, so it could do anything. All right, so we're excited to have you today. Like I said, we're going to be a little bit nostalgic. I wanted to mention two of my favorite broadcasters. One of them, many of you will be familiar with. He does the Prairie Home Companion. His name's Garrison Keeler, and he does the news from Lake Wobegon, and I've been listening to him quite a bit this week. It's not as cold here in Oklahoma as it's been there in Michigan, it sounds like. But he's one of my favorite radio broadcasters to listen to, and you just lose something a little bit whenever you go on camera. There's a little bit less left to the imagination, and so I wish sometimes that we could just do a radio broadcast, but that wouldn't be quite as exciting for some of our younger viewers. And so here we are, just bald face. We're right here. You can come see us anytime at Grassroots Healthcare. But I wanted to talk a little bit about him and to, kind of go over the weather and what's been going on in our neck of the woods up in the northern Oklahoma reaches of this area. If any of you are joining us from Florida, one of our patients has moved down there, and they're experiencing not, or have been experiencing most of the season, as he's been so quick to throw in my face nice sunshiny weather down there. Here in Oklahoma, when we go without sun for a while, we get some seasonal affective disorder. We get a low on our vitamin D levels, and studies have shown that that's increased people's risk for mood disorders, including seasonal affective disorder, which is a list of or a series of initials called SAD, which is quite ironic that it's called SAD, and you can correct that by getting your vitamin D levels up. One way to do that is with ultraviolet light or with exposure to the sunshine. Other ways to do that, we talked about a couple weeks ago, are your intake of vitamin D. We had some wonderful, delightful people come by the clinic this week and spoke to us about some different supplements and vitamin Ds that are more easily absorbed that we may be offering to our patients sooner. And so seasonal affective disorder is very real here in northern Oklahoma, and I happened to hear Garrison Keeler talk about that this week, and so I wanted to bring that up. If any of you are experiencing that, be sure and get out in the sunshine and enjoy a little bit of it. It'll carry you through the next few weeks that we have of winter. Before you know it, it's going to be springtime here in Oklahoma, bringing with it all the tornadoes and other, the tornadic activity and all other kinds of thunderstorms and things that we're so well known for. All right. One of the things that we want to talk about this week that I've been very excited to be a part of is a group of people who are doing some really exciting things with their diet and starting to control some of their health symptoms by just eliminating some toxins from their everyday diet. And so I've been struggling along with them. It's almost like running a marathon, trying to keep up with people. They're doing some different things as far as getting off of all sugar and wheat. So I've been on and off of it, and I definitely feel better off of the sugar and the flour than on. There's a great group online that I've on Facebook that I've joined called Beautiful Sugar-Free Me. And if any of you are interested in being a part of this, I put kind of a shout out to some of my Facebook friends a couple of weeks ago, and they've been really supportive. Several of them expressed an interest, so we brought them into the group. And some of them kind of just came along to watch. We had one heckler that came along, and then the rest have done really well. We had one gentleman who's lost 10 pounds just by going off sugar, and he's seen some amazing benefits in his health. One of my good friends who's moved away, and one of our old patients at Grassroots Healthcare, has done really well with her diet and has noticed a lot of her inflammatory symptoms, and she has an inflammatory illness, have disappeared. And she's been told for quite some time in the past, or she's learned about it recently, I guess. I don't know if she's been told that before or not, but sometimes we doctors forget about the nutritional component with our patients and how much of a role that plays in the inflammation of our bodies. But she's noticed a huge difference in her inflammatory process since she's gone off of the sugar, and she's really feeling motivated to stick with it. And so I wanted to invite you, my friends, if any of you want to, just friend me on Facebook. If you'll express an interest in joining the Sugar-Free Me group, there's some great, really smart, smarter than I am, people on there who have some great skills at life coaching and encouraging, and this is just a free group to join. It's very non-judgmental. Some people go off sugar, some people just go off soda, some people go off of all wheat products, all processed foods, and everybody just kind of gets on there with their questions or their recipes or how they're doing, or if they make a mistake, how they get back on track. And so I can tell you that since I've joined this group, I've had more good days of being off sugar than I've had bad days. And so I'm inviting you guys to look at your sugar intake, and we'll come back and visit a little bit more about that a little bit later on. So as the winter's been clearing off, and I've been telling you about my favorite radio announcers or radio broadcasters, Garrison Keeler being the first one, I can't help but mention another one whose birthday is very close to mine, and that is Pastor Bob Boyle. He's the preacher from Kansas, and he was for several years, did a weekly radio broadcast out of Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and he's moved up to Kansas now. He said that the Kansas people are more stoic, and I think that it's probably because it's colder up there. It's just colder, and they don't talk as much because, like I said, when things get cold around here, people get quiet. And so, but he's there in Kansas, and I want to wish him a happy birthday today. And one of the things I wanted to remember about him was how he had such a great way of repeating things that were true, and he did them long enough consistently that they finally sunk into a whole bunch of us, and we all sort of began to get it. And they weren't real profound things. They weren't real profound words of wisdom. They were just simple things, but they were true. And after we heard them enough times, they changed our lives. So I'd like to wish Pastor Bob Boyle, the preacher from Kansas, a happy birthday today. And I hope somehow I can find a way to make our show broadcasts as impacting as I believe that his radio broadcasts were in his area, in our area, in the northern part of Oklahoma. All right. He was focused on our spiritual health and wellness, and I'm focusing today more on our body health and wellness, but both things are important. I do remember, this is a time of year that everybody's looking at their diet and at their exercise. And so one of my friends who went to church with me there, Candace, she's a great pastor's wife up there in the northern Oklahoma area now, influenced by, again, like I said, Pastor Bob Boyle. She's been doing CrossFit, so she's been telling me about that. Now, Candace and I go way back on our exercise regime. We are famous exercise buddies together. We've started just about every exercise program. We did P90X. We've had some very difficult programs to do. Some of them were much more laid back. We used to walk together. We just have an ability to motivate each other. So every time we start a new exercise program, we start to think about each other and miss each other. And so I spoke to her this week, and she had told me that she was starting a new exercise program, which brought back our memories of some of the walks that we used to take together. And so we're talking a little bit today about the toxicity in our body and some of the ways that we can get the toxins out of our body. Exercise is a great way to do that. You can sweat it out, work it out. But a lot of times, the things that we have in our bodies are there because we're having fight or flight response, which we've talked about in some of our other episodes, and fear. And so Candace and I used to always, when we worked out, we'd work out in a gym that was completely empty. And so sometimes we'd go in there if the lights wouldn't work just right, or it was late at night, we'd feel a little scared while we were in there. There was one certain radio or one certain song that if it came on the radio, Candace would hurt herself trying to get over to the radio to turn it off because it scared her so much, because it started out really scary. One of our best times of working out was when we used to go for walks every morning. So I'd go wake up Candace and we'd go for walks, or we'd go for walks late at night. Now, she won't mind me telling this because it happened back before she was a preacher's wife. So she was not as dignified as she is right now. But we did have one great walk one evening. We left out late. We got about halfway down our walk, so as far as we could possibly be from home, about 1.5 miles from home. And Candace began to have grumblings and rumblings in her stomach, and it was quite a hike to get back home. So we were walking fast and trying to make it home, and the whole conversation was about whether we would or wouldn't make it home. Let me tell you, we did not make it home. Candace had to stop. So I remember the neighbors in Oshaleta that their house we stopped at. Thankfully, it was very dark. Thankfully, also that the street lights were out and that there were plenty of bushes in that area. But we didn't make it home that night without leaving those neighbors a present, and I hope they never found it. But Candace had a rough time that time. And so any of you that are starting a new exercise program, be sure and keep that in mind. Okay, it's January. I know many of you are starting new exercise programs. Don't get too far away from home right after dinner. Just letting you know. We had a good time, though, Candace and I did. And she listened to plenty of those radio broadcasts with my pastor. And he used to be very big on being scared. He lived way out in the middle of nowhere. And right up there in the northern part of Oklahoma, between several towns. And it was cold outside, and he would always, when we'd come by to go off to college, we'd stop by the church on our way off, and he'd ask us if we had a flashlight, because Pastor would never go anywhere unless he had a flashlight in hand. So he made sure that we always laughed a lot and carried a flashlight. He said that many, many times. That was one of the wise things that he taught us. And so fear and cortisol levels go hand in hand in increasing inflammation in our body. And so I want us to make sure and talk a little bit about some ways to embrace, our fears, learn when we're having them, learn when we're having those kind of fight or flight responses, and what we can do. We want to give our bodies the time to rest and digest, and then appropriately stress out our nervous systems with adrenaline whenever it's good and we can run and get those things out of our system. So, but one of the other things that I learned from, or one of the other things that I remember real well about this time of year was how it would snow and get really cold and school would be canceled up in that part of town. And so when we were kids, our pastor, who always had quite a funny sense of humor, one day his youngest son was out there, and like I said, it was out in the middle of nowhere. It was probably a snow day. School was probably canceled that day. And they were just home kicking around the house. Nobody was going to drive out there on those hills on such a snowy, slick weather day. And so the mailbox from our church in the parsonage was probably, I don't know how many feet, 20, 30 feet from the house. And so my friend, his dad asked him, bet him that he wouldn't, I don't know if they bet, but challenged him, I suppose, to go out and get the mail. So he challenged him to go out and get the mail without any clothes on. Well, my friend, being an 8th grader and not, according to my mom, who was also his teacher, not the most quick friend to think through everything before he answered, decided that was a great idea and that he would run out there without any clothes on. I think Pastor was going to give him some money. And so he ran out there without any clothes on. Well, as soon as he left, Pastor locked every door in the house, and my friend couldn't get back in. And so he was out in the snow and the cold, and so I'm sure that gave him quite a fight or flight response too. So be careful before you make these decisions about taking your clothes off in the cold snow this winter. It is good for us to go jump in the lake and get that cold water all over us, but be sure that you do it with somebody you can trust. So, all right. So those are my two stories about my favorite radio announcers, and I wanted to bring those up, and my friend Candace about exercise before we got too far into the show today. All right. So this week we've had some other interesting things happen. My second son, who's 14, got to climb his first rock climbing experience, and he realized about halfway up that he was afraid of heights. So he had quite the fight or flight response as well. After he'd been frozen there for about 5 or 10 minutes, I finally noticed, because I have 5 kids, so it's hard to keep track of all of them. So he was aching, all of his muscles were trembling, sweat was pouring off of him, and I realized that Joseph, who would never ask for help because he is a 14-year-old, was standing there or hanging there by the rocks and had not said anything, nor had he moved a muscle for about 5 to 10 minutes. So he was probably in quite a bit of agony. So just making some suggestions to let go didn't seem to be helping him very much. So he was able to finally grab onto the rope with both hands and let that swing him down. He was all wild-eyed coming down, but he kept his cool. He kept his cool, I have to say. And so when he got to the bottom, I reached over and put my hand on his chest and felt his heart just about pounding up into his throat. You could pretty much see it. And he said, I just realized I have a fear of heights. Now, Joseph, if any of you know, wants to go into military. It's been his dream since he was born, I guess. He's always wanted to. So I told him, that was great that he found out about that now so he could work through it before he goes to basic training. And he tried a few more times, but he never got up as high as he was before. So we'll see. He's going to practice that some more. He practiced that at the Y there in Ponca City recently, and all the kids loved it. My youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, but they're twins, so it doesn't really matter. She was kind of like a spider monkey. She was up to the top before she knew what hit her, and she didn't seem to have much trouble. But so everybody's different. All of us have different things that trigger our fight or flight response. And part of getting on here triggers my fight or flight response some too. I noticed it whenever I was working up to get on the broadcast today. Part of the ability to get through your fearful times is, first of all, just being aware that you are feeling a fight or flight response. Now, you can do that by checking your muscles in your body. We do some treatments here, some different energy treatments that make people aware and make the brain aware of how much tension that we're holding in our body when we're having a fight or flight response. Dr. Neiman, one of my great chiropractor friends and mentors, came on the show with us a couple of shows back, if any of you want to catch that. and explained kind of how that process works. But it retrains our brain about how much tension we're holding in our muscles, and that's related to chronic overstress of our adrenaline system. And so making our brain aware of how much stress and toxins that we're holding in our body and keeping our muscles more rigid will begin to relax. And so there's some different techniques that we can use to help relieve ourselves of those stressful chemicals and to flip our body from the fight or flight response back into the parasympathetic or rest mode, which we don't spend nearly enough time in. So as we're looking at being more healthy, that's one of the things we want to do. We want to spend more time in our rest mode this next year. We want to have more balance. Most of us want to be, we want to be more well by the end of 2015 than we are at the beginning. So one of the things that Grassroots Healthcare can offer you, besides medications or anything like that, is to have a way to motivate yourself. And so as I began thinking about this, I thought maybe patients would love it if they could come in, get their baseline labs drawn now in January, and then come back in March or April as things start to warm up and it starts to get time to start getting outside and exercising. So through these next winter months when we can't do a lot outdoors, we can be working towards that. And so maybe patients would like to come in, get their labs drawn, and then see how those labs change over the next 3 months. One of them is our cholesterol panels, our hemoglobin A1C. Anybody can see the hemoglobin A1C drop. It shows how high their blood sugars have been running over the past 3 months. It gives them an average. So even patients who have a normal hemoglobin A1C can see that it comes down, which is only going to be a good thing. We can also see some markers of inflammation. We can check our vitamin D levels. We can try doing some nutritional things instead of just taking a pill to get our vitamin D levels up. And then not just assume that we're better, but actually recheck our progress and have a date set that we're going to go and come back in and check with me or with Kelly what our lab work shows, what our weight is showing. Even if we wanted to have you do some measurements at home and see what your body size measurements are, and just be able to document that in your medical record and give you some feedback on how healthy your internal organs are, your liver enzymes doing. When springtime comes, if you're interested, that's a great time to do some good cleanses of your body, getting rid of any thing that may be toxic that's in your kidneys or your liver. We have lots of patients who have diabetes or prediabetes whose liver enzymes are elevated due to fatty liver, and so seeing some of those things get cleaned up will help increase metabolism and help you feel better for the summer when the weather is good and you want to get out and do things. We want you to feel like doing it. All right, so let me see here what else we need to go over. I wanted to go over the inflammation effects. One of the things that we want to see come down as we change our diet, begin to exercise, and flip ourselves out of the adrenaline mode is we want to see inflammatory markers in our body start to come down. And so there's a couple of basic labs that you can do here to check for those inflammatory markers. For our insured patients, we have a lab that will do your lab work for almost all of our insured patients, and all of that lab, including some genetic testing, is $20. And that's great. For our uninsured patients, the lab work runs more in the baseline labs run more in the $85 range, but if we want to add vitamin D, that's about $65. If we want to add your hemoglobin A1C, that's $20. So there's a couple of extra labs. A CRP, I think, is $15 or $20. A SED rate's $15 or $20, and those check for inflammation, but those may be helpful things to monitor as we're seeing patients start to improve their diet and their lifestyle. So if you're interested in that, please call and make a wellness appointment and mention that you heard about it on the show so that we can make sure that we're doing exactly what with you that you're expecting and what we're looking towards, because we want to measure for things that we're going to recheck for. If you're just coming in for a routine annual health visit and you're not going to recheck some of those things, there's no point in drawing them. in someone who doesn't have diabetes, there's no point in drawing hemoglobin A1C unless we want to recheck what it's doing, or drawing a CRP in someone who doesn't have active inflammation unless we want to see how it looks in 3 months. So be sure and let us know where you heard about it, and if you heard about it on the Grassroots Health and Wellness show, and that you want to do some things to see how your body's doing now, and then recheck those. All right, so we'll be super excited for that. Now, I want to talk to you guys again a little bit about some different ways we can get the sugar factor down and the processed foods down. And I really, truly encourage you, if there's one thing that you want to make a change on this this winter, starting in January, if you're making some kind of resolution, it is to detox from sugar. We're working on it here. I've definitely had many more good days than bad days. I haven't been able to do the whole 10-day detox, but I'm ready to start again if anybody wants to start with me. And they say the more times that you try to quit smoking, the more likely you're actually able to accomplish it. And so I'm hoping that the more days I'm spending off sugar is going to make it easier, and I'm actually going to be able to accomplish this whole 10-day sugar detox and see how I'm feeling at the end of it, and give you guys a report here in a couple weeks of how that goes. So if you're interested, one of the things that helped me decide that it was important to do is realizing how addictive sugar can be. They've done some studies that show how different animals respond to sugar over cocaine in a laboratory setting. They'll pick sugar to the point of death even, rather than eat what's nutritionally healthy for them. They'll keep going back to the sugar. It lights up the addictive areas of the brain much more than any other drug, and it is America's #1 drug of choice if you consider it to be a drug. The other thing that is causing a lot of inflammation is the processed food, especially flour. We consume about 146 pounds of flour a year in America, and flour is going to raise your blood sugar even more than table sugar does. And what happens when that happens is your body has to have a whole response to the sugar load that it gets. So your insulin levels have to go up so that we can keep the blood sugar level stable, and that puts stress on your body to break all that down, to store it, and then getting that stuff back out of the fatty tissue to be used at a later date is much more difficult. And so that's how we're packing on pounds every year, and it's slowing down our metabolism. And then the insulin spikes and drops, those hormones and neurotransmitters that are fueling the sugar and carb cravings, they'll cause us to feel more hunger, and then it'll just lead to kind of a rapid cycle of up and down blood sugars. And so that causes people to be more likely to overeat because they'll get a crash. And so there's lots of great ways and ideas about how to detox from sugar. So I'm going to go over 10 of them, and this is from a study and a book that was published by a medical doctor, Dr. Mark Hyman, called the 10-Day Sugar Detox. And there's about 10 points that he wanted to make. And first of all, you just have to make a decision that that's something that you want to do, that you are committed to it, and that you want to eliminate sugar from your diet. And it's not easy to do, but it rings true with many of my patients, and they are very excited about doing it. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, please friend me on Facebook, message me, let me know that you want to be added to the Sugar-Free Me group. And I have some wonderful people on there who help and are very, very supportive, and they've been very helpful to me. So make that decision and we'll go. And usually we do more of a cold turkey. Some people, like I said, do sugar. Some people do sugar and flour at the same time. I think you're going to feel better overall and notice a bigger difference if you do both. But that's my opinion, and you have to do what you feel like you're capable of doing, and then give yourself a great big congratulations, and celebrate if you do accomplish your goal of a 10-day detox. So the next thing we want to talk about, number 3, would be to avoid drinking your calories. Soda is a great big store of sugar, and it's definitely spikes people's blood sugars. But along with being bad for us as far as just the sugar goes, there are several other things about soda, especially diet soda, which it doesn't have formaldehyde in it, but it is broken down into two components. It's got some preservatives in it that can be broken down to benzene, and that's a carcinogen. Also, there's 2 amino acids and methadol. When you ingest the aspartame that's in it, it breaks down into 2 amino acids and methanol, and that equals formic acid and formaldehyde. So that's diet sodas. So there's several reasons why to get off some of the diet sodas. The caramel color is not necessary for the flavor, but it's just in there so that we think it looks pretty, and it contains some trace amounts of carcinogen, which when you couple that with the other things that we are ingesting every day that have trace amounts of carcinogens in them, it does add up. So getting off the soda and not drinking your calories is one of the best things that you can do. Now, for some of you who think it's too hard to go off of sugar and flour, it would be a great idea to think about some different ways, like healthy protein shakes that are not processed, that you could make at lunchtime or for breakfast and lunch, and then you only have one meal to concentrate on cooking during the day. That's been the most difficult part for me, as making something healthy at night. With 5 kids, spaghetti's always been easier. And so I did accomplish that this week with some pecan crusted and pretty easy to make baked fish that I put in the freezer and thawed out and cooked for Seth. And I made that with some sort of vegetable, and we handled that just fine. But out of the last month that I've been doing this, that's the one time I was able to get that meal on the table, because I work until 6 or 7 sometimes. So it's been a challenge. So if any of you guys have good ideas about that, I'd love to hear them. So number 3 is don't drink your calories. So moving on, number 4 is make sure that you get some protein at every meal. That'll kind of carry you through and cut the cravings and cut some of the insulin release. And so a protein shake or eggs, any kind of nuts or seeds at every meal, a little bit, is going to carry you through the afternoon and keep you from having that blood sugar crash that makes you so tired and sleepy. And then you can have all the carbs that you want is the next one, number 5. Unlimited carbs. You can have as much broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower, whatever it is. You can have all of those that you want. They usually recommend when you're going on a sugar detox, though, to avoid the starchier ones at first, including sweet potatoes and some of the squashes. But you can have peppers, mushrooms, green beans, zucchinis, cauliflower, kale. You can have a humongous bowl of that. So one good way to do that, sometimes they have some really neat Vietnamese foods and soups and things that have lots of meat and stuff in them, and you can have those with different kinds of salads, and they have lots of vegetables and great seasonings in those. That's one way that you can get those in your system and get off of the sugar. And you can make your own interesting stir fries. I have a friend in Ponca who eats stir fry on a regular basis. So that is a healthy meal that you can make, and it doesn't take very long. It has lots of meats, proteins, and so you can try that. The next thing is to fight sugar with fat. You know, all these years we've been telling patients to avoid certain kinds of fats, but what really is the problem is sugar, and sugar is causing inflammation in our body and along the lining of our blood vessels. So our cholesterol goes up to try to, coat those and smooth them out, and we've been chasing the wrong thing. We've been distracted on one side, being told what was the problem, and they're sneaking in the sugar on the other side. So if you can fight sugar with good kinds of fats, coconut, extra virgin olive oil, avocados, the omega-3s that are in your fish, and that kind of thing, and then lots of nuts and seeds, that'll help balance your blood sugar. And certainly for those 10 days that you're detoxing, I don't tell patients to try to curb that too. Sometimes it's a little too much to do all at once, because you do feel kind of bad whenever you're detoxing from sugar. Number 7 is be ready for any kind of food emergency, meaning pack yourself like a little survival kit, so you have something on hand so you don't resort to eating, going next door for a candy bar. Grassroots is right next door to Bill and Ruth, so that you don't go over there and get a big thing of spaghetti whenever your blood sugar crashes, or one of their candy bars. And so have something around. In my desk drawer, I'm keeping almonds, so I have those with some dark chocolate. And then it talks about anytime that you're feeling stressed, or like your body is tightened up, or you're tense, or you're having a stressful day, to do the 5-for-5 breathing. And that's one way to simply de-stress. And I want to go over that with you guys again real quick. If you want to put your feet flat on the floor, this takes less than a minute, but it flips you out of the stress mode into the fight or flight response. Kelly's going to join us for this one. And when you take your breath, make sure that your belly goes out as you breathe in. So if you have to use your hands for that to happen, I'm not going to show you my belly. And then you breathe in for 5 seconds. So you expand, and then you breathe out. And you tighten up your muscles in your core, and you breathe out. And then you do that again for 5 seconds in. And then you breathe out for 5 seconds. And let your stomach muscles tighten up as you breathe out. You do a set of 5 of those. It takes less than a minute. That's only 50 seconds. And if you couple that with turning your eyeballs to the side, either the right for 5 seconds at the end, and then the left for 5 seconds at the end, and you're finished. The stress is better. You've decreased your cortisol response, and everything seems much, much better. I do this with my patients in the room, teach them how to breathe. And eventually, if you do that often enough, like before your meals, or before you go to bed, and you start to remember to do it when you're feeling tense and tight, then you'll notice that it becomes kind of second nature to you, and you'll start breathing with your stomach going out. And so you'll get more and more used to it. And that's how we breathe about up until the time we're in kindergarten. And so that flips us more into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. Now, cortisol is what we release when we're in the fight or flight mode, and when we're in constant stress under adrenaline all the time, 24/7. Cortisol is able to cause diabetes, and we've documented it by giving patients cortisol to decrease inflammation in their body. So your body fights inflammation by producing its own cortisol, which increases our insulin levels and our propensity for diabetes and prediabetes, and big blood sugar swings and all kinds of things. So if you want to see a change in your body, one of the ways to do that is to change the way that you think. And so if you think that you're stressed and you live like you're stressed, you're going to have more inflammation, more cortisol, more blood sugar spikes and crashes, and you're going to hold on to your weight and become diabetic. But if you begin to put yourself in a relaxed mode and allow your body to decrease its cortisol levels just from breathing, simply from the way we breathe, and thinking good thoughts towards ourselves, and begin to make some good choices, you're going to see some big changes over this next 3 months, I guarantee. All right, so that's putting out, swapping distress for de-stress. And then the last one is putting out the fire of inflammation. So we just talked about how inflammation is what triggers blood sugar imbalances, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. And the most common source of inflammatory foods other than sugar and flour and things like that are the hidden food sensitivities like gluten and dairy. So that would be some of the other things that some of my patients have gotten rid of recently, especially the one I was telling you about who's had some autoimmune troubles. And I have another friend who's going to try that diet, and I also have another friend from another group who did try that, go on gluten and sugar-free, and he's done amazingly well and really turned his life around, where he was at the point where he had so much inflammation in his body that he couldn't even walk, and now he's feeling much, much better and able to get things done that he never, and do things that he never could do before. So I really believe this is something that can change our life and certainly change our 2015. Oh, and the last one is get your sleep. I almost forgot. So let's go back over those real quick so we don't forget any of them. Hang on a second. I'm going to grab my list. I just want to review since we went over so many. So make your decision. Go cold turkey. Don't drink your calories. Get your protein. Eat unlimited carbs. Fight sugar with fat and the good fats. Have an emergency kit with foods that are good for you. Swap stress for de-stress. Do your 5-for-5 breathing. Put out the fire of inflammation, and then get your sleep. Get good sleep so that your body can revamp. So those are the ways to get rid of the inflammation in our body and change not just our way we feel, but we can actually see some of those changes on lab work for those of us who need evidence that we're improving, that we're making progress, and that our internal organs are getting cleaned out. Grassroots is here for you for that. But the main thing I wanted to talk to you about today was just making sure that we don't forget in all of our hustle and bustle of the new year and our dieting and our crazy diets that we're trying is to focus on our health, and instead of pills and other things from outside of our body, begin to nourish our bodies from the inside in ways that's going to change the way we look, how good we feel, and we want to be standing by to give you guys some feedback on how you're doing as you start to get your health in line. So that's what we're about. All right, and anybody who's interested, I wanted to also go over with you, I'm a bee mama now. I've got my own bee colonies. They're coming, I'm expecting them in April 1st or the 13th, we're not sure which. And so my friend Ryan is going to raise those bees for me, and I'm going to get the produce from them, the honey and the honeycomb, and they make really great lip balms out of some of the Young Living essential oils and different lip balm using a beeswax. So if anybody's interested in becoming a surrogate bee parent, please let us know, and we will get you in touch with Ryan, the local northeastern Oklahoma beekeeper friend of mine, who's going to be raising some extra bees out on his property this year. Interestingly enough, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but there's some crazy bees in Turkey that make honey off of this plant. It's a rhododendron plant that has a hallucinogen in it. So I've asked Brian if he has any rhododendron around. He doesn't. I've encouraged him to get some just in case. It might make us all feel better, but I'm not sure if he's going to do that or not. But anyway, so we're going to have bees with honey, and we're going to have honey at Grassroots Healthcare this year. If any of you are interested in sponsoring a bee colony or in having a bee colony of your own, we can put you in touch with the Northeastern Oklahoma Beekeepers Association. I have a friend in Owasso who does it, who's a great educator, and there's bee classes starting soon in the Northeastern Oklahoma Beekeepers Association, and they really require, according to Ryan, a lot of minimal maintenance and interference and things like that, and they are allowed inside the city limits, especially in Broken Arrow. So if any of you are interested, we'd love to set you up with a way to keep your first colony of bees. You may not get honey the first year, although Ryan did. He's done it before. Usually you'll get honey the second year, and it's a great way to help the environment and support the bees. So if you're interested in that, let us know. The bees appreciate you. And if you're interested in joining me for the sugar-free detox that we're starting for my birthday, get back to me. You can friend me on Facebook, Melita Tate, or message me through Grassroots. We have both mtate at grassrootstulsa.com is my email. You can leave comments here. Any of you that have been watching today, for the first 3 comments that we get on our website, we're giving away. So just you can just get on our website and message me, and then I'll get in touch with you. And we're giving away a peppermint or a lavender or a lemon Young Living, it's a bottle of Young Living essential oil. You can pick which one you want for the first 3 comments that come through. We'll give those away. and we'll mail them to you, or you can come by the clinic and pick them up today if you want. So we really enjoyed having you be part of our show. Any questions or things that you have for us, get back to me. We'll try to address it in the upcoming weeks. Anything about your health, anything that you want to see covered on here as a topic. Of course, we're into alternative health, but and we'll probably cover it from that perspective some, but just any questions you have about people that you care about or yourselves. If you know anybody that wants a physician, I'm Dr. Tate, and Kelly's my other provider here in the clinic, and we'll be glad to see you at Grassroots Healthcare. And in the words of my favorite radio broadcaster, that's the news from the northern part of Oklahoma, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. Thanks for joining us at Grassroots.